Hello, and welcome to another session on stepping through the spec of the Web API. Today's step is background fetch API. So grab your cup of coffee and let's get started. In this one, just as it says on your screen, it is an experimental technology. So use this with caution. It is not available yet in Firefox. It's not available yet in Safari, as you can see from these little icons. And if you browse down to the browser compatibility table, you will see you can only use it in Edge and Chrome based browsers. So I would caution the use of this. However, it is a cool tool from a performance standpoint. It is a performance tool. So this API allows for higher performance when large downloads are in an application. Performance is something all web designers, web developers worry about. We're always constantly looking at ways how can we compress files and minify files and combine files so that there are less traffic between the server and the application on the user's computer. So what this does is it allows for some of those large files, typically they're multimedia files, to be able to be downloaded in the background, hence the term background fetch API. So if you have large files, they can navigate away from the page. They don't have to stay connected to the page for it to continue downloading. And you can actually utilize, as it says in the second paragraph here, for service workers to defer the processing until users connected, but can't be used for long running tasks. So the background synchronization API is a little different. We'll get to that one because it can't be used for a large download file. The sync requires a service worker to stay alive until that fetch is completed. And it has to do with battery life and unwanted tasks and all that stuff in the background. So the background fetch API fixes that. So it's a way for the developer to say, okay, browser, I want you to go and I want you to fetch this information, whatever it is, typically a video, and in a like it says down here, usually want to do this in a user visible way so that they know that it's being downloaded. Display progress to that user. Once its download's complete, then you can do something with whatever it downloaded. Okay. So it's a great way to make things more performant. As usual, there are a bunch of interfaces here. And there's an example. You can always test if the background fetch manager is in that browser. So it's browser supported. Otherwise, you can do a fallback if you need to. It's going to use the Navigator service worker as it's doing here. It's downloading some MP3 files, some artwork, things like that. Now, in this one, I'm going to open up this tab. This one does have, and they have these on occasion. It has a glitch here that is a, a pretty good example. And I'm going to show you one that I did kind of based off of this, a little bit slimmed down version. But this is a pretty good example. They have a manifest JSON, they have the service worker file and things like that. But the main work goes on in this client.js file. I'm not going to go through all of this because these little specking little videos are meant to be quick hitters. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but I would recommend come here and just kind of stepping through kind of what it does. Here it's got a template function. It gets items from the feed. Here's monitoring the background fetch, that sort of thing. So there's some good functionality there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have us just kind of, instead of going through all that, we're going to jump over to my example here. And let me just open up a few files. Now I have here, I'm kind of simulating a podcast. Like, let's say you have an app where people can download podcasts and they can then play those like in an offline environment, like I do that with tools like Spotify and things like that. And so I have a background JS file and index. Now, the other things, there's a manifest JSON file that's just, you need that with the service worker. So I just have that manifest JSON file there. And then I just have an image for the screen and some stylings. And I do have a service worker that all the service worker does, it just installs the service worker. It caches the resources, typical service worker activity, and then it activates that service worker. And the cache, I have it starting with podcast hyphen, is how I'm doing it. And this is the fetch that's happening in the background here. And I'll show you what I do on my background.js file to kind of utilize this. So if there's a network response, fetch it and then store it in a cache and typical background service worker type fetching. So, but the real thing that I want to show you concerning the background fetch API is here in my background.js file. Yes, I'm utilizing the service worker and kind of piggybacking off that. That's what the API does, so to speak. So I've registered the service worker, and then I just get the scope of it. You can, if you ever want to look into that, maybe I'll do a video on that sometime. You can get the scope of a service worker and kind of where it lives and that sort of thing. But then I'm checking to make sure if the background fetch API actually exists in the code in the browser. So I'm just doing this little check with the bang there. If it does not exist, then I'm saying it's not available. Okay. Then if it is available, I'm telling it, constantly logging, hey, it's available. Then I go, and once the service worker's ready, then I do an async with and I just have this little parameter for the service worker registration. And I start the background fetch. Okay. So here my background fetch, it's just this background fetch. And here's what I'm getting. I'm getting that grooving wave. If you've seen my audio output devices video, you've seen me utilize that grooving.wave. And then I'm getting also the image because some images may be large. I'm titling, here's the title of the episode. So this is just metadata, the title of the episode. You could possibly use that metadata in your application somehow. The size of the image, what type of image it is, and all that. And then I put the total download size in bytes. Mine is 22 meg. So here's the download total. And all I'm doing with that is that's a tool to be able to give feedback to the end user. So I can say, okay, here's a progress toolbar. I'm downloading it and I'm showing you kind of where we're at throughout the process. And so here is my update progress bar. So first I see, okay, is my background fetched? Has it been downloaded? And does it have a download total? So if it's downloaded, has a download total, then I'm taking my progress bar and I'm just doing whatever's been downloaded. It could be 11 meg out of the 22 meg. So that's what the downloaded property does, is how much has been downloaded so far. So the downloaded, and then my download total, that's up here. That's the 22 meg total. And I say, okay, just do some simple division. That way it gives me a percentage. If 11 megs downloaded and I have 22 meg total, 50% has been downloaded. Then I'm grabbing my progress bar, and I'm going to show you the HTML in just a moment. And I'm just setting the style width to my progress and whatever my progress is calculated, and multiplying it by 100 just for the width because it does it in decimal form. I just got to do a little math there. So then I go and down here, I'm just updating the progress bar in response to the user action. So I can check the progress button, and every time I click, it'll update the progress bar. So what this does is it's not constantly updating. I could have written code that it's constantly updating the progress bar, but in this case, the way I wrote it is I have a button there that they can click and say, okay, how much is downloaded so far? How far are we into this? How much do we have left to go, sort of thing. So either way works. This was just an easy way to do it. And I just didn't want to get all caught up in the interface as much as the background fetch API. Now, on the front end, pretty simple page. Just got an H1 with the image and things for our background fetch podcast. And then I have my progress container with my progress bar. Yes, I use divs. So it was a really quick and easy way for me to do it. And then I have my button where I can check the progress button. So let me restart my server here. And there is, and you can see it started downloading episode 501, and I can click check progress, and I'm on a pretty fast connection. So let me move myself out of the way. It said that service worker registration was successful with my scope, and the background fetch API is available, and it already downloaded it. So now it's already downloaded, and then I can do whatever it is I need to do with that particular piece of code. So when I go back here, when I do the background fetch, I can then access that content and play it when they click the play button or whatever. This is sort of a similar technique that a lot of like podcasts or audio uh, type of like audiobooks and things like that. They sort of use this kind of technique to where they're downloading it in the background. They let you know, hey, it's available. Click the play button, you can play it. So then they access that to play it. So I have downloaded piggybacking off the service worker using the background fetch API. And then once it's downloaded, I can then work with that and utilize it and have the end user play Groovin.wave. So I just wanted to show you that real quick. I would recommend, again, going and checking out if you want to do something a little more robust. I just wanted to show the actual background fetch pulling. But if you want to actually get into, okay, now that it's pulled, how do we play it and all that stuff? I didn't want to get into all that. I just wanted to talk about the background fetch piece. So that is code is in here. It's pretty good code, so you can take a look at it and make it work for your purposes. If you have any questions, let me know, and happy fetching.